Hello, everyone. Thank you ever so much for joining today. I know there are still a few people that are joining as we speak, so welcome, welcome. It is great to have you if you are new to this series. We at Verto, we run a few different types of webinars each month, but this particular series is open to anyone with an interest in hearing about important aspects and nuances within the P3M world. We chat to people with expertise in areas that might spark new thinking, and try and change attitudes and behaviours where necessary. So we hope this is useful, and we hope to see you all at a future episode as well, future session. It's also lovely to see so many familiar names signed up for this one as well. So welcome back to you all. Today's topic is important. We first started talking about those in organisations that are project adjacent a little while ago, a few years ago now. We discovered that service leaders or subject matter experts were being asked to add their data and their information, what they were working on, into projects and programmes of work, which is fine. But then, in fact, we found that this was happening so much within our client organisations that I believe the initial idea for our workspaces package, and why it was then subsequently rolled out, was to help these project teams and PMOs and those working alongside those teams to help capture that data that they were supplying in a much more consistent way, and to help those project teams turn that information into more structured and more meaningful data. We now know that accidental project managers, which is what we are now calling them, are increasingly involved with change delivery, often with a little, not much support and little or no training. However, in today's webinar, rather than paint a story of sadness, we also see great opportunity for those involved to make the most of this, to recognise the situation. And we hope to shed a light on this so that if you can identify this is happening in your own organisation, we might be able to arm you with some tools, or at least some thinking around what to do next, how to support those people. So today I'm going to be chatting to Ross Mardell about this subject. Many of you already know Ross, but for those who don't, he is our Chief Technology Officer here at Verto. He has also been delivering a lot of talks over the last 12 months or so where this particular role and what happens for these accidental project managers, he's been highlighting this. So we're really going to unpick all of that today. Now, before I say hello to Ross officially, I just want to remind you all that this session, as always, is being recorded, and it will be available on demand afterwards. If you do find this topic interesting and you think others might as well, do share the on-demand video afterwards. You're more than welcome to. I'll send it through. It will be on our website, it'll be on our YouTube channel as well. Also, we have decided to open the discussion for this topic from the start. So if you have a question, just raise your hand if you're happy to speak about it. If you also want to pop your question into the Q&A, you're very welcome to. I'm going to try and navigate both of those and make sure that I get to everybody in turn. And then we'll finish hopefully on or around 12 o'clock, but we won't go over. So we're going to do it that way rather than having a dedicated space for Q&A at the end. So with that, I'll get Ross on screen. Hello, Ross.
Hi, Laura. Hi, everybody.
Hi. So my intro there, I hope that I got the timeline right of all of that, all of the events from our sort of discovery or coining of the term, and then moving through to workspaces, and then defining these people as accidental project managers. So correct me if I'm wrong on that, but also, what does it all mean to you? How have you sort of uncovered all of this, and why do you think it resonates so strongly in the public sector?
First of all, morning, everybody. Lovely to see so many people join the call. Accidental project manager, it's kind of grown up over the years, that term, Laura, but it's really come to a fore in the last year or so with us developing our VIP agents into Verto and the AI elements. And it's almost like, okay, we've created these VIP agents that can do lots of different things and can act on behalf of people and become virtual team members, if you like. And that got me thinking, well, why do people need virtual team members? Surely they're experts in how they do stuff, but they're not. Accidental project managers is that term. It's kind of a term, and it almost sounds derogatory, and it really shouldn't. It sounds like it's wrong. I'm an accidental project manager because it's but actually the people who are accidental project managers are often the most skilled people in an organization. And I had it myself many years ago in working in IT, where I happened to be good at managing servers. I know that's very dull and very boring, but I happened to be very good at managing servers. And my boss said to me, "Can you manage the upgrade of that server, please?" Okay. So all of a sudden, I became an accidental project manager because I was now in charge of managing this project of upgrading this server, which then turned into, can you upgrade all of our servers? And then can you get us into a new data center? And so it sort of grew legs and ran off down the road. Your point about does it resonate into public sector? I think it crosses across all sectors, I think it's kind of everywhere. What's an accidental project managers, I would argue every single one of us on this call is probably an accidental project manager, because you started off and you started getting good at something, and then someone said, "You're good at that. Can you manage the project to do something with it?" It's a really interesting term, and I don't know even if it's the right term, because I think accidental project manager sounds like they're not good at it, and that's wrong.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, you sort of talked about why these subject matter experts are utilized. They're often the biggest, they have the best knowledge, the biggest knowledge in out of anybody.
Mm.
Um, so, and that's not really brought forward, is it? So, from what you've seen, what do they do really well? How should we be talking about them so that we can break away from this sort of negativity?
It's it's a tricky one, isn't it? And we ought to embrace the level of knowledge that our teams have, because we absolutely have subject matter experts across all of our organizations who are very good at doing, probably, when I say technical, I don't mean from an IT perspective. Everybody has their own technical specializations, whether that
Yeah.
happens to be, I'm a social care coordinator. That's just as important as any other one of the specializations that people have. I think the and generally what I think happens is that their technicality is championed. So people go, oh, they're really good at doing that. They're really good at doing that, and that's recognized, and it's recognized as a specialization. But if you then say to that person, oh, and they're actually a project manager doing that,
Mm.
in some ways, I don't know whether it's because project management isn't seen as a sexy industry or a sexy discipline or something like that. It's almost like they don't want to be seen like that. They don't want, oh, I don't want to be a project manager. I want to carry on doing my technical area of specialization. And I think it's kind of a tricky one for us to navigate, really, because I
Yeah.
think you've got that conflict where someone wants to. I know certainly for me, it was like, no, I'm a service specialist. I want to do that. I'm not a project manager. I'm a service specialist. I
Yeah.
don't want to be
Yeah.
seen as project managers. There's a little bit of resistance both ways, really.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think, I'm a marketer, and I do think that with marketing, it falls under a similar bracket. You could argue that people fall into project management a bit like they fall into marketing. And I suppose that maybe that's where some of the sort of stigma comes from. It'd be interesting to hear from people on this call how you became, project manager, program delivery directors, and all of this, whether it was, a purposeful move or not. Um,
Mm.
yeah, because I think that accidental project managers, as we're calling them, they're often seen as underskilled, but actually, the reality is completely different. But what they might not have is that sort of formal training of how a project runs end to end, and how to sort of manage the different stages, if that's how it's working, of a project. Um, so moving on then a little bit, what are the risks to an organization if we don't explicitly recognize and support the roles of these highly skilled but maybe undertrained project management people?
Yeah, well, this is more about the project management discipline across an organization, isn't it?
Mhm.
Because if you think about, if you're an accidental project manager, or you're just a subject matter expert, you don't have training in how to manage a project. And there are some surveys that show us, if you've got people who have a label of project manager in their title, often only as many as 20%, or as few as 20% of those people are actually properly trained in project management discipline. And I think that's true across the board. I think probably if we did a straw poll on here, a show of hands, we'd find
Yeah,
that people who are actually trained as project managers are few and far between. And that's globally. It's not just a UK problem, by the way. It's a global problem. So it's, how do we get that discipline of actual proper project management into organizations? And every single organization needs to have a decent project discipline, and that's kind of got to be led from the top. Um,
yeah,
because yes, you'll always have pockets where there are some people who really want to manage their projects well. Nobody sets out to do a project and go, I'm going to do a really bad job managing the upgrade of the servers. In my case, I didn't set out to do that. But there are challenges along the way that trip me up because I don't know anything about project management. I didn't
yeah,
foresee a risk. I didn't foresee that I hadn't engaged the correct stakeholders. I didn't know I had the correct. I didn't know whether I had the correct level of budget. I
hmm
didn't know what progress I was supposed to be reporting, and ultimately, did I know what the end timeline was for what I needed to deliver? So it's
mm,
about, as organizations, having the discipline to enable you to set those goals, to make sure you can identify the risks and the support that you need, and allow every single person to access that. Now, that's not an easy thing to do.
yeah. That's a very easy thing to
It's
say. I was gonna
it's
say,
not an easy thing to do. Changing the
yeah,
discipline in an organization to do that is very, very hard. And change culture is really hard and probably the biggest part of it. Now, obviously we're Verto, we do program project management tooling, right?
yeah,
But actually that's a small part of it. The change in the culture change in the organization is possibly the hardest piece that we tackle as an organization and help our customers with.
yeah. And when you say it's got to be led from the top down, arguably there's leadership that also is maybe not formally trained. They could fall in firmly to the accidental project manager bracket themselves. So what
Yeah.
do I mean? Organizations that have an established PMO, they sound like probably the best, in the best shape to be, agreeing the discipline, deploying the discipline, and making sure that it's, that it's picked up by everybody else. What about those who don't have a formalized PMO?
Yeah, that's then about creating a structure
Mm,
that allows them to do it. Now, you have to have you can't you don't have to have a PMO in an organization.
no.
Many larger organizations do have a PMO, but you have to have somebody who's responsible for the project management discipline in an organization.
Mm,
Because if you just let everybody go off and do whatever they want, you end up in a chaotic mess with data everywhere and just not being able to report on it and not being able to get consistent any data at all out of it.
mm,
So if you want to be a
mm,
data-led organization, you have to have somebody who's responsible for their project and program management in an organization. It doesn't have to be a PMO, but it has to be somebody who probably has an interest in project management.
yeah,
Is that an accidental project manager? Probably not. Probably need somebody who's got a reasonable level of experience in doing it. And you say it's led from the top, but if you think about it, the person sitting at the top is actually managing 4 or 5 very, very large projects. Each one of his departments or her departments happens to be a very large project or program.
yeah,
And they're kind of the pinnacle of, I'm the top project manager, if you think of it like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, so moving on then to the accidental project management managers themselves, do you think it's easy for them to identify themselves? How would you suggest that people start to put their hand up and say, oh, you know what, I think I need some training in this area, or I'm not quite sure how to allocate this risk because I haven't been trained. And how do people identify? How do people give themselves the confidence to talk about it?
I'm not sure how to identify this risk. That's assumed, of course, that they know that there's risks, that they need to that there is such a thing as a risk. They'll know, oh dear, that might happen. Do
Too
they know
true.
that's a risk?
Too
No.
true.
They know something might happen, but they don't know that that's a formal thing that they should be recording, do they?
Yeah.
Likewise, that should they be recording every single issue that's going on? Well, what's an issue? Define an
Yeah,
issue.
yeah. Let
So you've got,
alone stay, tag them as a particular
yeah,
degree of risk. Yeah.
exactly. How do they identify themselves? I'd almost argue that every single person in an organization is actually some sort of project manager. Everybody is managing some sort of project. That can be tiny, right the way through to huge, great, large scale programs. But almost everybody in an organization is has some level of project management in their job, I would argue. How much does it require training? You probably only require training when actually um, you look at something and say, do I think I can manage and get that delivered on my own without any further support? And I think if the answer to that question is I don't think I can deliver that without entirely on my own, then you are probably a project manager because you're looking at managing other. You've got to get other stakeholders involved in order for you to do your delivery. Do you need formal training? Don't know, because sometimes it comes from experience, right?
Yeah.
You can go and call on experience from other people in the organisation, who can often guide you around. And if I look at that, how did I learn how to do project manager? Well, the guy who was sat next to me went, "Oh, well, last time we did this went wrong. Last time we did that went wrong. Oh, you need to think about that. You need to think about that." It wasn't formal training. It was more of a
Yeah.
more of
Yeah.
a discussion. But should you have formal training? Interesting. And again, it's about changing the culture of the organization. It's about the tooling that you use. It's about how you choose to manage your projects as an organization. It's about the level of reporting you want out of it, how disciplined you want it to be, how structured you want it to be. There's so many different ways of managing projects, from the very loose to the very, very rigid.
And like you were saying, the discipline that you use across your organization or methodologies that you want to employ for, like, running, types of projects, if it's down, and then you can just relay that information onto somebody who will need to know it, then, possibly training enough. But I think that from your answer, I can determine that it's probably a tall ask for somebody who is not formally trained, who maybe doesn't recognize immediately that they are an accidental project manager, to identify themselves and say something about it. So from the other side, then, how can these formalized PMOs or project program leaders start to look out and actually take take the initiative to bring these people in and start rolling out some of this discipline to those people?
And then that's about talking to the people who are managing the people who are project managers, if you like. So if I'm managing somebody, I know that I've got outputs that I need that person to do. So I need that person to deliver that project.
Yeah.
So there's a clear output and something that I want to, outcome that I want to achieve. Okay, so it's about going from the bottom up and going, okay, what outcomes have you got that people are trying to achieve for you? Okay, and those start to become your lowest level projects, and you kind of work your way up the organization, and that then allows you to help identify those people in it. Now, if you're using a tool like Verto, where you get into the discipline of getting people to write those down, that then provides you the level of consistency that you need. You need a degree of consistency in your project and program management in order to make sure that you've got consistent reporting, your processes are the same, you're starting to record things the same way for each project, because then your reporting becomes simpler going up the chain, because this all works from the bottom up, right? So the person at the bottom delivers their outcome, delivers the outcome of that. So the person above them then says, okay, how many of the 5 outcomes that I'm expecting have I had delivered? Right, that's my outcome delivered. And so it goes up the chain. But unless you've got consistency in the way you're doing that, it's not going to work.
Yeah, yeah. Hierarchical structures like that are, yeah, the way in order to gather the information and funnel it back up to the top, really, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
And often, if you look at our customers, they'll say to us, the trick is to understand the report that the person above me needs to see. So once they understand the report that the person above them or several layers above them needs to see in order to make decisions, that makes it a lot easier to figure out what is it I need to record, what is it I need to structure in order that they can see that report.
Yeah, yeah. It would be interesting to know from the people on the session today, is anybody out there, would you call yourself an accidental project manager, or possibly not, but have you identified this group of people within your organization, and are you working with them in any kind of formalized way? Let's have a look. We've got a couple of hands raised. Let me see if I can get to you. This is all. So we've got Barbara. If I can, I'm hoping it's all right. I can bring you on screen if I can get this done. It's very hard. Bring on screen. Hello, Barbara. Can you talk? Are you able to?
On mute.
Oh, mute. There we are. It was.
There we
I thought it
go.
was me that had to unmute you. Yeah. So, Barbara,
No.
tell us what you do. What's going on in your organisation?
So I work for the London Borough of Council, London Borough of Croydon, even.
Oh yeah.
I don't know what I was talking about there. And you know, we have a lot of people, local authority in general. I think about 62% of our work is deemed project management in some format or another, but that's not how we often look at it. Very often, people look up and say, "Oh, Barbara, Jane, Joe, whoever, I need you to work on this." So it's a project. You know, I might be a housing officer, I could be in DEM services, I could be in adult social care. It's done as part of what you would normally do. And oftentimes we're not trained, or we're not skilled in project management. We're trained in being a great housing officer, or being great, social worker in adult social care, whatever the case may be. But we're not. So we do our best. We work through, and we start to hear things like milestones and project plans and minimal viable product, and it all becomes a little bit overwhelming. So we want to default back to what we know. I'm very good at what I do. I don't understand the speak. I don't understand the reporting mechanisms. I don't understand the life cycle or any of that.
Yeah.
And we do have lots of people who work on projects on that basis.
Yeah.
And I think that there is we've still got a little more work to do to ensure that people understand, or our organization understands, the value of project management, what it brings to the table as a discrete profession in its own right. And there's always that little bit of rub. So I work in what we call a transformation office, but it's a PMO. And I did fall into project management. I was in HR actually, but was being given different projects to do. So I fell into it, but have since gone on to be trained. And I do see very often that sometimes people's eyes glaze over. It's almost like speaking to somebody who's a bit techie. We start to speak a language, and we start to bang on about milestones and, this, that, and the other, and status reports, and people just glaze over and they just want you to go away. So I think, and I think there's an element of that for many organizations. I don't think we're unique in that, but very often it's a bit like going into management, isn't it? You're a very good supervisor, you're very good at doing something, and someone promotes you into management. Now, the skill of management comes with its own sort of range of training. So, and I feel sometimes that's what happens with project managers. I posted your whole advert on our Yammer, which is like Facebook type thing, on our Yammer page. And I said to anyone, anybody who's interested, join. And I don't know if there is anybody from Croydon on the line. I hope my colleague is good.
Yeah.
I have my colleague to join. And somebody wrote back to me and said, and this is the funny bit, I don't know if I can even read it to you, because then I'll be using his words rather than my own. So just bear with me. I'm just going to log into Viva Engage and read what he said, because I think he asked me to share it with you, and I didn't think there'd be an opportunity to do that at all. So I was like, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know that they'd be interested. So let's have a look.
Well, it's interesting what you just said while you're looking about about how management is a very different set of skills, isn't it? And you might be good at one thing. This actually came up in a podcast that I did very recently. And I think Christina, who I did the podcast with, is actually on the call today. So you should go and have a look at that as well, because this has come up. Yeah.
So here's what he says. I won't name his name, but it's a colleague who says, without sounding as if I'm trying to deflect from your message, isn't there a better term than accidental project manager? I have found myself in the position you describe in the past through being passionate and diligent about my role and seizing opportunities to bring in extra resource for projects I may not be fully trained or confident in delivering. However, there is nothing accidental about these situations, and I and many others have created for ourselves. Even if a manager has given us the work, I am sure it's generally because of their trust in our abilities rather than by accident. There must be a better positive term. And that's what he wrote. So that's
and
sort of
that's kind of my
this
point as well. It's kind of my point as well. You know, should it accidental project manager feels a derogatory term. It's really interesting what you said though, Barbara, about the technical specializations, and because you get that glazing over when you talk about project management, right? We've all seen that, we've all experienced it. I experience it even more being a techie as well. I get a double whammy of it.
I hesitated saying that line when I realised who you were.
But it's they don't want to be identified as project managers. They want to be identified as
we want to be a
the
social worker,
technical
a housing
specialization.
officer. Yeah,
their technical specialization that they have, whether it's housing officer or whatever it happens to be. That's what they want it to be identified as, not as a project manager, because it's not seen as, I don't know, this might be controversial. It's not seen as a sexy subject, if you like. It's kind of it's a kind of really dull thing. And you're back to that quote that you've got there. It's not accidental by the person who's giving him a project to run. That's a very deliberate thing. They're giving them that project because they have that good technical specialization. It's that that person himself has become an accidental project manager without asking for it, right?
That's it.
Yes.
So it's not accidental on the part of the person managing them. It's accidental on the part of the person who's receiving
you're accidentally becoming a project manager. That was the point I took away from that.
But I do take the point about accidental project manager as being called that, because yes, I think we should come up with a better term. I don't know what it is.
Well, we'll work on that, won't we? We'll definitely work on that. Thank you so much, Barbara. That was amazing.
Thank you.
I'll just take you off, and then I hope it's all right if I bring Oliver on. And then Oliver, if you want to unmute yourself, I think you have to do that.
Yep, perfect.
Yes, lovely. Yeah. So tell us about what's going on with your organisation.
So similar to Barbara. So my role, I'm the assistant head of our TMO, which was formerly our PMO until the past about 12 months. So we've looked to create sort of hybrid roles where we're not just project managers, we're formally trained in service improvement as well, because we find ourselves in the NHS in Wales. We're being asked to do a lot more for a lot less. So service improvement seems to be a lot of the route we're taking forward. But it's quite interesting because our organisation is a pan Wales organisation. So we look at shared services who we sit in ultimately do all back office functions for the NHS in Wales. So the whole view of it, all the transactional service, things like payroll, procurement, elements like that sit within shared services, so the health boards can be concerned with treating patients, which is a fantastic idea. Issue we have is we have formally trained project managers, service improvement officers, so we follow Prince 2 and a waterfall methodology, and we're Six Sigma trained as well. Then issue we have is we're a team of 20. We're supporting an organisation of a number of thousand of people. We can't pick everything up. So what we've been trying to do is almost create accidental project managers, and this is something that in the past couple of weeks I'm working on, is utilizing external forms in Verto actually. So when we have, because we ask our services to request support formally, what we sort of accidentally have is our services get really brave and bold and like, yes, we can definitely do this. And then when it comes time to it and things start to go a little bit awry, they panic and they put a request in, and it's almost too late for us to come in then. So we never want to say no to any requests. Unfortunately, we physically cannot do everything, and we've almost got a bit of a mix. We've got some services who sit within shared services who probably overly use us and ask for our support on things that they could do themselves. And then others that will run off and do things on their own, which I'd argue should probably come for a little bit of expertise. So utilising our external forms, work that we don't select to pick up, we developed our own training, so not formal training, our own sort of introduction to project management, introduction to things like writing business cases. As we are a public sector organisation, we got to write a lot of business cases just of any funding. And what we're trying to do is almost create accidental project managers, and I'm someone who did fall into it myself. I did a general management graduate scheme within NHS Wales. I've not specialised, whereas a lot of my colleagues, for example, in procurement, will be specialised within. I sort of became a bit of a general manager, which meant I had a lot of adaptable skills, which almost does push you in the route of a project world. So it's sort of trying to develop a culture where we can have our team supporting our own projects, but then also we can then, in utilising the external form has been really good, because I've built a scoring matrix in the back. So projects that are really heavily weighted, I can go, right, we definitely need to sort of pick this up. And then if it's under a certain score, we're starting to offer a bit of project consultancy and a bit of project assurance and empowering staff, because unfortunately you can't pick up everything. I think we got a team of 23 now, and work just keeps coming in. So yeah, it's interesting for me, because we're almost trying to create an accidental project manager elsewhere, but have it a bit more controlled and ensuring that people are following the correct routes, and give a little, for example, like part of our introduction to training, we go into a big detail on how to write risks, how to assess what a risk is, how to write an issue, how to plan a mitigation, elements like that, which I think is starting to get towards that sort of utopia almost, where we aren't picking up every little thing that we don't necessarily need to.
Do you get resistance in your organisation as well? Because it's all you kind of, you say you're doing that on your own, but you need to provide some sort of project discipline over it. And of course, the thing is, I can do it. I'll just let you know when it's done.
Yeah. We definitely get that, and you also get, and I find this sometimes in certain areas, not all areas. Some people also, whilst you have accidental project managers, you have some people who don't understand project management and just assume anyone is a project manager without that formal structure in place. And it has been a challenge at times. We are trying to bring people on sort of a journey, and this is why I'm trying to get it through our front door slot via Verto, because we've been utilising Microsoft Forms for requests for work, and the issue with Microsoft Forms is I've got to then spend time as well to go back to who's put the request in to get more information, so I can score it myself to decide where. So it was just trying to get to close that loop. The issue we've got as well, though, is Verto. We've only got a certain number of licenses. We're a massive organization. We literally couldn't provide everyone with a license. So again, that's where we develop non-Verto based tools. So like RAID logs, templates of project documentation to try and do that. But we do face resistance. I don't like to stereotype, but it is a lot of time the sort of older school people who sort of are just very much of, I'll just crack on, leave me alone. I don't need to report him, which again is fine. But what we find is a lot of those projects then go awry, and then we get requested in at the last hour to try and salvage something which they could have been on track a lot sooner. So it's a culture thing as well, really. That's the.
And I think it's one of those things where and I know all of the people on here are very interested in project management, but it's one of those things where what you're doing there, what you just described there, is essentially you're saying to somebody, you crack on and do your job, but actually I need you to do these things in a more structured way, so you're actually doing a bit of project management. And they immediately rail against it because they think, well, hang on, why am I doing that? What's the point? I know how to do this. I know how to do this. I'm the subject matter expert on this. Of course, I know how to do this. But actually, all you're trying to do is try and give them a little bit of assurance that they're going to actually manage to get to the delivery point. In their heads, they know they're going to get to the delivery point. But what you're doing as a team, again, probably all of us on this call as a team are trying to do is to say, actually, if you thought about it a little bit more, you might either get there quicker or get there with a better delivery. But it's seen with resistance because it's kind of, what do I get out of it? You haven't actually shown them what they get out of it, and that's the trick. Is what do I get out of it by actually doing this? Okay, do I get a better? Prove to me that I've got a better outcome because I had to do this thing. I've managed to do it. How could you have made me do that better? And
and and our training we offer is obviously optional. Everything we offer is optional. I can't go in and tell a service you need to do it this way. But again, it is about selling the benefits. And part of the other thing I've tried to, so I've become our Verto sort of overarching admin. I try to build in a lot more reports. So an important one for me is a lessons learned scrape. So we literally pull all lessons learned for every single initiative we've ever done, and I keep that, like, the plan is to keep that refreshed now. So it might not even be right. You follow this. Your project is in this world. These are the lessons learned from people who have undertaken projects in that world, and just to try and give some of the tools and sell the benefits, and that lessons learned element for me is really important because I can show positive lessons that went well, and I can show negative lessons that didn't go well, and it just helps to bring people along. I think it's finding a happy medium though, because as I said, half our services probably are overly keen to use us, like asking us to help them put for example, something like an online form in place, which they could very much do themselves. They don't need a formal project manager. And then half of them are building services without any formal project management as well. So it's getting that happy medium really.
And this is kind of, I didn't want to talk too much about AI in here this call, but our Verto intelligence partners that are now built into Verto, they're kind of there to help people supplement their project teams right now. So if you are an accidental project manager and you don't know anything about risk, you don't know about anything about issue, you don't know anything about finance, then you can add virtual team members to your team. So for example, we call them silly names. So the risk manager is called Ruby Risk. So you add Ruby Risk to your project. And then you can go and ask Ruby Risk a question because she's a risk specialist. She's read every single book there is to read about managing risk. And so you can go, I'm doing this project. What might be the risks involved in doing that project? So they're not having to come to you, Oliver. They've got a tool sitting inside Verto. I know you haven't got the licenses, but it's sitting inside our tool. And this is one of the things that I think is going to be a real use for AI. It's not about replacing people. It's about supplementing their knowledge and how allowing them to do things better and to expand what they can do. Because I think the power of AI is not in replacing a whole load of project managers and doing things because doing them automatically. It's about supplementing the power of that, augmenting it with the human. The human and the AI is way more powerful than either the human or either the AI. It's when the two come together that you become extremely powerful, and that's what we're working with. Like your customers, effectively, they can start using Verto, they can start using VIPs and ask those questions, but getting the discipline that you might employ, and not have to go through an organization like you to ask all of those questions, because they can get a load of those answers there, and it means you're getting better response, you're getting better discipline, they're getting better discipline, but they're also learning along the way. And it really is a great tool for accidental project managers, the RVIPs area, because you can literally supplement your team with the subject matter experts you need. Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a side tangent there, Laura.
I'm going to have to try and pull you back on track.
Sorry, I do tend to get quite excited about our AIs, but really interesting story. Thanks, Oliver.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That was really useful. I'll just take you off screen now, Oliver. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this question does sort of feed into what Oliver was saying there. I've got a question about, from your perspective, what do accidental project managers really need and what do they not need? Now, Oliver mentioned that they've developed some informal but still useful and optional training, which sounds just like what they need. But can you talk about anything more formal, structural, or anything that's not too overwhelming?
You need a structure and a process, don't you? And that structure and process can be really simple, or it can be complicated, depending on I think it was Barbara said it earlier. It's like just using BAU projects. If you're just doing BAU projects, business as usual projects, they don't require an awful lot of discipline. Whereas more structured projects require an awful lot more discipline. And it's about laying that groundwork and putting those tools and disciplines in place for people to use. So Oliver was talking about it, but he's kind of doing exactly what we're talking about here, is putting a framework in place. So even if it's a really simple framework, it's just a RAID log.
Yeah.
Really simple framework. It's a RAID log for everybody to use that's consistent, that everybody uses in the same way. Great idea. An issue log and a lessons learned log. Talked about a lessons learned log, keeping together your entire list of lessons learned. All of those sorts of things. It's about taking baby steps. Don't try and boil the ocean with this stuff. If you've got an organization that is not terribly mature, which is most organizations, do not try and boil the ocean and do everything in one go. It just won't happen. It's change management. It just has to be baby steps.
Yeah, and that leads us nicely onto the next little section, which is all about, I've mentioned it as well, and Barbara to a degree as well. They're big organisations. You can't do everything. There's decision stress. There's decision stress at each level. And again, something that came up in the podcast that we were delivering the other month is the psychological safety that is needed, that is required within a workplace, so that people feel confident enough to, for example, say, this is not working out very well, and it not have land completely on their shoulders. This risk is red, or this project needs to be stopped. It's not performing. It's not going to be a success. It's not going to give us the outputs that we want. It's better to stop it now. These sorts of decisions within project management, which is, as we've now identified, is definitely a profession that people can fall into very easily and be formally untrained for. These are big decisions that often that are based on significant funding, or often people feel that their jobs are on the line if they make these poor decisions. So how can we guide accidental project managers better, so that they to remove that judgment that they might feel that they might face from leadership?
It's your fault it's gone wrong, Laura. Yeah? That's what you're worried about, right? There's someone going, it's your fault it's gone wrong.
Absolutely.
And that's what you've got to try and allow you to be able to say, this isn't working. I need help to get it working. And that really is
for saying that, rather than
it really is a cultural thing that has to be led from the top. And it's really about transparency as well. Do you have a culture of saying, oh, it's green, don't worry, everything's green, it's all fine, nothing's going wrong? Or do you have that culture of being able to say, I'm going off track here, I might need some help to pull me on track? And if you don't have that culture in an organization, your projects will start to fail. Because if everybody is just marking things as green because they think they're going to get into trouble, it's not going to work. So I almost feel like that has to be led from the top. One of the interesting things about, again, sorry, I'm going to move into my AI area again, is the data insights tool, which everybody who uses Verto on this call should be able to press now. You push the data insights button on a status, then the AI will tell you what it thinks the status should be. And we are starting to see across our customers, people marking things as a status that's different to the one they would have selected themselves on the basis of the AI telling them that. Okay. Now that's quite an interesting way of deflecting blame if you're in an organization that isn't quite as open, because you're no longer having to say, oh, Laura, it's your fault. You can say, no, the AI said that. The AI said it's gone wrong, not me.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's gone wrong. The AI said it's gone wrong. And so it is a way of deflecting blame. You saw it with the Warwickshire police officer. Oh, no, it was AI who said there was going to be some violence at this football game. No, it wasn't us. AI said there was going to be violence at this football game. And they completely deflected it away. And it's a really, really interesting way of looking at things. But we are starting to see that across Verto projects, people setting things, all of a sudden a change from it moving to green to moving to amber, because they're using the AI to set those rather than setting them manually.
And of course, the AI is going to, the data insights, or is going to look at absolutely everything within that project, program, or portfolio of work that you set it to have a look at. And so it may well have uncovered something that you just didn't know was in the weeds there. And
I think one of the interesting things about it now is recent improvements over the last few weeks that people may or may not have noticed, is that we replaced the underlying engine. So now, though, as opposed to it just going, I think this should be red, or I think this should be amber, it will also say, and I don't think it should be red because of this, and I don't think it should be green because of this, and I think it should be amber because of this. So it will give you a much more balanced approach, so that the accidental project manager or project manager actually has the arguments to go back to when they're asked, why is it that and not that? It's not just, oh, the AI says so, or the AI says, and this is the reasoning behind it. And it's a really good way of questioning project managers into looking at it and saying, actually, these are the things you need to look at on a project. You need to ask help for that. You need to ask for help for that.
Yeah.
Because you're right, they often don't know.
Yes, it's also great because it's actually it's proving to you that it's not having a hallucination or whatever they say that AI sometimes has a hiccup. It's saying, I think it should be amber. I'm not going to quite score it red because of this, and I'm not going to quite score it green though, because it's also proving it's worth a little bit maybe.
There's some interesting. It can do some interesting things. AI is never right. That is never 100% accurate, and we all need to remember that.
Of course. Oliver's actually just popped a question onto the Q&A. Can I ask what is driving the information from the AI? Is there elements of a certain project management approach built in, i.e. Prince 2, so it points in that direction, if that makes sense?
Good question, Oliver. So again, it wasn't supposed to be an AI webinar, but
yes, sorry about that.
But the way the AI works is you set your organizational context as well. So as part of your organizational context that you give to Verto and to give to the VIPs, you will say, we are an organization that manages all of our projects using a Prince 2 waterfall methodology, as an example. And that gets passed through to the VIP on every single chat that it has. So it knows that what it's trying to do is to match what you're using as a methodology against the project data that it's seeing. And so you should get, if you said, we're an entirely agile house, you'll get different answers back from the VIPs as if you said, we're a Prince 2 house. So, and you can also tailor each of the VIPs and say, you are a Prince 2 specialist, for example.
Mm-hmm. Hope that answers your question, Oliver. So we're sort of coming towards the end of the questions that I've got for you, Ross, but looking ahead, how do you see the role of the accidental project manager, or indeed whatever we end up calling it, because maybe that's not the best terminology now, thinking about it. How do you see this role evolving within this do more with less environment?
Oliver talked about this a bit earlier as well, but it's really interesting, isn't it? But Verto's been around for 17 years. When we first started this, and actually over those years, if I look at about 10 years ago and the people who were using Verto 10 years ago, we used to have about a 1-to-4 ratio of project managers to projects. So a project manager would be managing on average about 4 projects. Okay, so they would be designated as the project manager inside a Verto project. Today, as we sit here today, it's closer to a 1-to-6 ratio. So we're seeing project managers being asked to do projects. Some of them are more complicated, some of them are less complicated, but we're seeing you have to do more with at least the same. How do we do that? All we can do is help the technology. So augmenting your project teams with our VIPs, as we talked about, providing tools that make your reporting consistent, providing tools that allow you to capture the data in a consistent way, providing tools that help you to create that structure. Again, it's then about, can we provide people to help you to do the change management piece and actually do change the culture within the organization. So it's very difficult because there's clearly an upfront investment in that. And that's often a difficult argument to have with senior leadership when they say, I want all of this data. And you say, well, hang on, that requires a cultural change. Well, what's the return on investment? How much does it cost me to do that culture change? And where's the return on that investment? And that's kind of a difficult argument sometimes to have with senior leaders, is that I don't see the return on investment in project management. It's short-sighted. In my view, it's short-sighted, but an argument that is quite difficult to have. But I can't see project managers being asked to do less in the future. Is AI going to help them and augment what they can do? Yes. Is it going to allow them to do more? Yes. Are all the tools we're putting in place going to allow you to do more? Yes. But so are all the other tools as well. Verto isn't the only tool. There's lots of other productivity tools out there that are going to help project managers. Oliver talked about creating a raid log that isn't in Verto. Fine. That's just as good, but it helps people to do more with less.
Yeah, absolutely. Sean has just popped a question in as well, and seeing as you were it's also about AI agents. So I'm just while you were just covering that topic there, I'll just ask this. It seems suitable. Can you please share some guidance about how we can use the agents like Ruby Risk, who is my favourite agent? I love Ruby Risk. She's always the example, isn't she? There's plenty of other agents as well.
Do you want me to cover this here? I mean, it's a VIP's conversation, Laura. I mean, more than happy to do.
Yeah, you might as well. We've spoken enough about them.
The way this works, Sean, is that essentially we've created 18 VIPs, or Verto Intelligence Partners, they are called, and each one of them is an agent. And they all have specialisms. So Ruby Risk is the risk specialist. Frank Finance, I'm not going to go. You get the
Peter
gist,
Project,
right? Peter Project, Poly Program, Carol Coordinator.
You see what
the list goes on, right? There are 18. You can see what we've done. It's all alliterative names, and so the way it works is you create a Verto Intelligence Partners chat inside your project. And for example, you could say to Ruby, in my project, what are the risks that are the top 5 risks? Okay, and she'll look at all of the risks that you've actually declared as a project manager in your system and find out which ones it thinks are the most important. But it will also get across all of your other project data that you have inside that project and go, oh, by the way, for example, it looks like that cost is running out of control. Do we want to create a risk for that? And if you say, yeah, I think we need to create a risk for that cost running out of control, you can just say to her, can you create the risk? And she'll create the risk. So you can use it for things like that. I always use an example. There's one agent we call Peter Project. He's a specialist project manager and scheduling manager. So his role is defined as a project manager and scheduling manager. So and actually there's a really good demo that I kind of do of this. Is you start with a blank project inside Verto, you give it an end date, and it's creation of a school. It's building of a brand new school. And you can say to Peter Project, we've got to finish this school by July next year. What are the top 10 tasks that I need to get done? How long are they going to take? When should I schedule them for? How are they going to run? Which ones can run in parallel? And it'll give you a list of the top 10 things. There aren't 10 tasks clearly for building a project, for building a school. There's about 100, or maybe thousands,
if not more,
thousands of tasks. But you say to him, what are the top 10 tasks? He'll give you the top 10 tasks back, tell you what dates they run from or what dates he thinks they should run from, and you can say go create them. He'll create them in there, and all of a sudden you've got a Gantt for your project built without you having to do that. And we call that solving the blank page problem, where a project manager or accidental project manager turns up and someone says, create the tasks and schedule you need to do to deliver that project then, please. And you stare at a blank page for 10 minutes trying to figure out what you should do. And that's the sort of thing the VIPs allow you to do, amongst other things. They're also very good at sitting in the hierarchy as well. So if you're running a program, it will look across every single project in a program and you can say, in this program, how are we aligning to our strategic objectives? It'll look across all of the data, look at what the strategic objectives are for the whole organization, and match all of those projects against those strategic objectives, as an example.
And Sean, I was going to say, we have I alluded in my intro there that we did run a few webinars. We do run spotlight sessions specifically for clients where we show a pre-recorded video of a particular feature, and we have done one for Verto Intelligence, which covers the VIPs, the Verto Intelligent Partners. So I will, in my email to you all with this session linked, so that you can send this out to whoever you want, I'll also include the link to that pre-recording, so you can actually just see it in action. It's a very short recording, probably they're normally about five minutes or something like that. Just takes you through what that looks like in Verto and how they can be used.
Those of you who are Verto users at the moment, you'll be able to use data insights today. So that's you should see a little AI icon next to most status icons that you see, status drop downs that you see. The Verto Intelligence Partners is in beta program at the moment, so it's for select customers. But we're always interested to hear of customers who want to use it.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm conscious of time. We have 4 minutes left. So Ross, I've got one final question to you. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who's listening, who's just thinking, oh, this really sounds like me, what would it be?
Well, first of all, don't panic, because you're probably a lot better at doing what you're actually doing the delivery. So don't panic. You'll get it done. I guess the question is, can I do it better? So if that sounds like me, does that mean I can do things better from the delivery perspective? And there are lots of people out there to ask. So I think that's the most important thing. Remember, there's a lot of people out there to ask. Even if you don't have the tools, there will be a lot of people in your organization who have managed projects and who you can go and ask. Certainly, you should go and look and I know, Oliver, you're saying you've put that discipline in place for people who need to run those projects. But if you're an accidental project manager, do you even know that's in place? So go and ask your manager, is there stuff in place to allow them to do it? Have we got a framework? Have we got a process? Go and explore what they are. And if the process doesn't exist, think about creating one, or talk to us and see if we can help you to do it, But I think the most important thing is you're very, very good at what you do if you're an accidental project manager, because that's why you've been asked to do it. So don't panic about it.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's a really good one to end with. We've got 2 minutes left, so I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who joined the session today. It was great to have a little bit of audience participation as well. So thank you to those who answered questions and told us what was going on in their organisations. As I mentioned, I will send out an email in the next couple of days with the link to this session, and I'll also include a few extra bits where I think it could be useful for you guys, a few extra resources, which mainly you'll be able to find on our website or on our YouTube channel. And so I think that's it from me. Do look out on our website and also on our LinkedIn for next month's webinar. It will be around the sort of middle of March. We try and keep them same time-ish each month. And so more details to come on what that will all be about. But yes, thank you so much for joining today. It was wonderful to have you. And thank you, Ross.
Welcome. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Finish.